Okay, cool. Well, welcome to the International Friend Connection. We're a place where you can practice communicating across countries and cultures to develop mutual understanding. And we're glad everyone is here tonight. And we're especially grateful for my friend David Siegel. I had the privilege of knowing David for a couple of years. No, more, maybe a few since 21. So a
Yeah.
couple of years there, 2.5 years or so since
Mhm.
I was on the podcast. And then we've been emailing back and forth, met a couple of times. And I my impression of David as CEO of Meetup, that he really cares about the company and he cares about the mission. And all the staff I meet at Meetup, that's what I'm impressed with. They seem to care about the mission. So we all wish him luck, and we all want Meetup to be the best company it can, so that it can continue to grow and help people all over the world. So David's going to talk about 3 important lessons I found in his book. His book talks a lot about like corporate stuff, but I found 3 things in there that I think would just be helpful for everybody to know, especially young people. Oh, our good friend Seal showed up, the owner of the who runs the SEMO group, Society International Meetup Organizers. Rio, good to see you, Seal.
Hi,
Seal's my good
Seal.
friend too. So a little bit about David Siegel. David has 25 years of experience as a technology and digital media executive, leading organizations through innovative product development, rapid revenue growth, and digital traffic acceleration. Prior to joining Meetup, he was a CEO of Investopedia, and before that, president of Seeking Alpha. He has a bachelor's degree in philosophy, politics, and economics, and an MBA from the University of Pennsylvania. He's also an adjunct professor at Columbia University, where he teaches strategic planning and entrepreneurship. And strategy is a very one of my favorite things. Real big fan of the book The Art of War and authors like Gary Gagliardi that translate it. And he's also the author of his latest book, which is Decide and Conquer: 44 Decisions That Make or Break All Leaders, and also hosts the Meetup podcast, which is dedicated to the power of community. So
Which you
we've
were
got
on. You were one of our first episodes.
Yeah, that's right. I think second episode or so. It was.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that episode. I shook the whole dang time, man. And you said you did not seem nervous at all, but no, I shook the whole dang time. It's like I tell all my shy people. It's like I know a lot of techniques that allow me to be nervous, that allow me to do big things, allow you to be in pain, but you go do what you want anyways, because what you want to do is more important than the pain or the nervousness. So we're going to talk about a few things from his book. One of the things, so you gave me your book. It was a real rough time in my life. My mom had passed. So I'm like, I don't know if I can get through this book, but I challenged myself. I'm going to read it. I'm going to listen to the Audible version. And then you said, sent me an email, said, what are 3 things that you really got out of it? And so I racked my brain and I said, the most important things I thought for the average person, where the importance of being kind, also being able to create your own luck by knowing a lot of people. And then you mentioned something called building your own personal board of advisors, and we'll get into that. And if we have time, we'll talk about the decision-making framework. If you could give a quick overview of that, if people want to pick up your book. So first, one thing I would like to talk about is the importance of being kind. Once I truly realized how important it was, and I tried to make my life a kind life and be kind to others, I noticed a lot of opportunities started opening up for me, and a whole new world opened up for me, and a whole new world of people when I was isolated for a long time. Giving value to others and being able to look out for others, and other people look out for you. So David, would you just like to talk about that a little bit? Then I'll have a follow-up question.
And first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to meet many of you. And I know we're gonna have lots of time for questions, so you can ask me anything at all. David, you're just one of my most favorite people. There's a lot of people that reach out to me via podcasts and everything else, and I basically say no to everything at this point. But when David reached out to me, I'm like, I love David. I love everything that David does, and I'm just we want to support you 1,000%. So
yeah, I really appreciate you saying that there.
I'm just glad to be here. Okay, so I think that I want to talk about being kind, and
why it's so important.
And why it's so important. We'll start with that. And there's two things I want to talk about in reference to being kind. One is the difference between being kind and being nice. And I really want to explain that a little bit because I think that people mix the two up.
Yeah, people
together,
get that very confused.
Exactly. And that could lead to problems for people because they don't take care of themselves. So let me explain the difference first. Sometimes as a leader at Meetup, I've had to ask people to leave the company. And that's not a nice thing to do. It doesn't make you feel good to tell someone that they need to look for another job or that their job is ending. It makes you feel terrible. But it actually could be a kind thing to do for someone who may be struggling, who may be actually unhappy, but isn't able to like move on to the next step in their life. It isn't nice to say to someone, hey, I know the project that you're working on is really important to you, but it's not helpful to the company. And you need to stop working on that thing that I know you're really passionate about because it's just not helping the company very much. It doesn't make you feel good. It doesn't make them feel good, but it could be also kind for them. And I think a lot of times people believe that the best thing that they could do is not make someone feel bad.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily true. Sometimes, and of course, how you do things is everything. And you want to minimize having people feel bad, but sometimes you can help someone a lot and they can feel bad in the process. If someone is non-functional and they are, let's take a different example. If someone is sitting around playing video games 18 hours a day, it might make them feel bad to try to help them to do other things and get out and do things. And they could feel bad, but ultimately you're being kind to them. So I think what I find is a lot of people make the mistake in leading companies or in leading a meetup group or in just anything that they happen to be doing of feeling uncomfortable, upsetting people because it's not nice, when in fact, that could be very kind. So I want to like just separate those two things out and saying, focus on being kind, don't necessarily focus on always being like nice to everyone, because it could be the kindest thing you do to create some friction and some tension. Now, the opposite of that is the importance of being kind in general versus not being a good person. The problem is a lot of people look at these leaders, like whether it's Stephen Jobs or Elon Musk or other people, and they say, oh, in order to be a CEO, in order to be a tech CEO, in order to be a leader in business, a leader in tech, a leader in something, you have to be a not good person. You can't be a good person and be an effective leader. And they couldn't be more wrong. They couldn't be more wrong. People look at these famous leaders that are just, you know, dictators and dictatorial. They, oh, that's the way you have to be. The reason why it's so important to be kind as a person, as a leader, is because in business, you build a reputation. And you have all these people that want that will work for you. At least I have had many people that have worked for me. And if I'm not a kind leader, then they're not going to work for me when I move to another job. I've had people, this is their third time, our CTO, this is third time he's working with me. Another person, this is also his third or fourth time actually working with me. And I think when you're kind, you attract people around you who are kind also, and who are good people. And the kinder that you are, the more the types of people that you surround yourself with will also be kind. So it's truly like in the person's self-interest to be as kind as possible, because that's who you end up attracting around. And when people are selfish and they only want to take, then they end up surrounding themselves oftentimes by people who are also selfish, who are also taking.
Yeah, that is very true. One of the things, like you talk about how nobody realizes, like the CEO, how tough that job is. People think that job is super easy, and nobody realizes how much responsibility and how heavy the decision, even running a large network of meetup groups like myself, the hateful emails I get behind the scenes, and I'm just doing something for free, trying to help people. And even the burden of like someone's acting up and okay, we got to remove them or we got to ban them, and that hurts me to do it. But some people leave forever. Some people take that as a warning and come back and like, you know what? I really had a wake up call. I went and got help. and now my life's better because you banned me for a while. So,
Yeah, if you try to be
and
nice
so
to
that was a
everyone,
kindness to them rather than letting them get away with
exactly.
everything. Yeah,
What a great example, David. If you want to be nice to everyone, then you're not being nice to
yeah,
anyone by trying to be nice to everyone. And that's just a very important concept that a lot of times people don't understand how much kind of negative or toxic people can potentially have in terms of like a total impact in a group or in a community.
yeah,
And sometimes it's hard. You have to remove those people, and then it's for the betterment of the community, and also oftentimes for the betterment of that person. So I would say one of my principles in leadership is, how can I be as kind a leader as I possibly can, so that I surround myself by kind people, so that positive things end up happening there, so that I could continue to hire people that will want to continue to work for the organization. But at the same time, you also have to, kindness doesn't mean, hey, do whatever you want, come in
yeah.
whenever you want to, work as many hours as you want. That's
And
not
there
what
are some
kindness means.
stories in your book how Meetup was such an awesome place to work that they kind of paid for the employees to do everything.
Everything.
And so that was a little bit of a boundary issue. So one thing I've learned, kind of the difference between being kind and nice is boundaries. And like the book by
I love
Dr.
it.
Henry Cloud, Boundaries. Also, our friend Alicia told me to read this book, Set Boundaries, Find Peace, A Guide to Reclaiming Yourself. It's how to, it's kind of where you begin and somebody else ends, and that it's okay to say no, and when it's okay to say no. And
Beautiful. People
because if
think
you
that,
overgive and if you try to make everybody happy and you're a people pleaser, you end up pleasing nobody, getting everybody mad at you, and then you're miserable yourself.
the boundaries thing is such a very, very important point. Um, I think that many people make the mistake that they think the best thing they could do is just to keep saying yes to other people.
Yeah. And I've
And
been like that most of my life. Like I'll admit it. I tend to have people pleaser tendencies, and I want to make
yeah,
everybody
and I
happy.
bet
But
many of the people on this webinar are the same as you.
yeah,
I'll bet they are. And part of the reason why some people, you have to ask why we are. So if someone is at times, I'm not saying this is you, but if there's been times where someone lacks confidence in some ways, or
yeah,
doesn't necessarily feel as good about themselves as they'd like to in their past, you want to build friendships. And
yeah,
it's a great way to build friendships and connections is to say yes, 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 yes,
yeah. That's very
because
true.
you want to feel connected to other people. And that's such an important thing to all of us. Saying no is like, wait, that breaks down a
It
potential
almost,
connection.
when you're a people pleaser, it hurts you inside to say no. Yeah,
It does. It's painful, but it's so important, which is why when I started off, I said I was doing podcasts, I was running around the country, I was doing speaking engagements, and I wasn't, and at some point it was fun, but then I was like, this is not making me
yeah,
happy. This is just too much. So now I just say no to everything except for good friends like you.
yeah. Well, I definitely appreciate it. And like I tell all my friends, I tell anyone I'm ever dating a relationship with, I tell all my hosts and everything that never be afraid to put up a boundary or discuss things with me if I make you, if I do something that makes you uncomfortable, because honest communication and it is the most important thing in interpersonal relationships, whether it's a friendship or a relationship. That honest communication is more important. And I'm friends with the author Bob Berg. One of his books, he always talks about you want to communicate with tact and empathy, and these are all skills that you can learn. I remember, so everybody knows I'm on the spectrum, and in my 20s, my teens, I would blurt out everything that would come to my head, and my friend would be so embarrassed. He would be like, man, you got to learn tact. And finally, after reading so many books about people and getting so much training and help, I sat my friend aside and I'm like, you know what, man, I took your lesson. I am a lot better at tact. I'm not perfect. And and setting up boundaries and stuff and being kind, you're never perfect. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. But I guess if you
Part of
hurt
it,
someone,
David,
apologize, make it right.
and a big part of it, David, is what you refer to, I'll just refer to as impulse control.
Yeah,
It's something I've had to train myself in, by the way, as well, because I'm very energetic, as you could see all the time.
yeah,
And sometimes a thought, and I think quickly, a thought comes to my mind and I say it. And I've been working on myself as well to just kind of control your impulse. Your impulse is to say something immediately. Okay, take a second to think about it. And I think that's a muscle.
Yeah.
Impulse control is a muscle that I think each of us, work to exercise. And people have the
Yeah, that's
opposite
very true.
challenges, that they
I
think too
found
much
that
about everything you're going to say.
I found that life is an exercise in learning self-mastery, and that emotional control is very hard. Like I'll feel like somebody will say something, and then I'll feel the bubbling up inside me, and I want to snap and say something, and oh, I will make so many mistakes sometimes or regret it later. But now I'm trying to be more aware of my emotions as they go on by doing mindfulness and other trainings, so that when I feel those emotions, I say, okay, we're feeling strong emotions. We're going to walk away and we're going to come back to that email or whatever it was later when we're calm.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, I want to move on to the next thing because I don't want to keep you here all night. We got 2 more topics. So one of the things in your book, you talked about creating your own luck by knowing a lot of people and meeting a lot of people. And I guess what would be your tips for building a big network of people or friends? And one of the things I've run into is like, so I used to be someone like one friend since elementary school, some acquaintances, things like that. And then I kind of didn't have him as much once he got married, had kids. And so I started going to meetups, learned to make a lot of friends. And then now sometimes I feel so bad because I have so many wonderful people I like in my life, but I don't have time. I don't have time for everybody. And I feel bad. So there's so many wonderful people, but that's a problem I'll work on for myself. But I just want to get your tips on how you created your own luck by meeting and knowing a lot of people from some of the stories you talked about in your book.
Sure, love to. Okay, so actually the book at one point was called Luck is Hard Work. And I really believe that
That is very true.
It really is. Every person in this webinar has the ability to set up their life so that you can have lucky things happen to you. And I'll give you some examples and I'll give you some tips. Let's talk about that a little bit. And it involves networking and meeting other people. So here we go. So, throughout there's this concept of optionality, which means that when you make a decision, sometimes you create options for yourself, and sometimes you close off options for yourself in every decision that you make. So for example, you take Meetup, for example. If you go to a Meetup event and you meet 10 or 15 people, you're creating all these options for yourself because you're now meeting people and who knows what can happen from those connections, okay? Conversely, there are other decisions that you can make that close off options for yourself.
Yeah.
They're you call them trapdoor decisions, that they don't open up more options, they close off more options. I'm going to drop out of school or whatever those things are that could eliminate options for yourself. And I think that one of the underappreciated pieces of making smart decisions is thinking through, is this decision, is this thing, and I want each person to think about this for a second. Think about a decision that you're thinking through right now in life. Like take a 5-second pause. Think about any decision, Jacqueline, Cheryl, Rich, Anne, Eileen, Zeman. Think about any decision right now that you're thinking about, and then think about the 2 things that you're considering. One of them is likely able to create many options for yourself or more options, and one of them is likely create less options or close off options. And I think that's a very important factor in decision making, because if you're constantly creating options for yourself, you're planting little seeds, and you don't know what's going to happen from those seeds. Like, I will have a breakfast with this person, I'll lunch with this person, I'll meet this person, I'll get together with this person. I don't have an agenda. I don't have any agenda. I'm just meeting with all these different people. And then suddenly that person wants me to, let's say, speak at a conference randomly, or that person offers me a job, or that person asked me to go out on a Saturday night and play pickleball or something like that. Whatever the thing is. But by meeting many different people, lucky things end up happening all the time. Like, David, you're an example of that. You've had so many lucky things that have happened to you, and so often. And by the way, thank you for saying that. In relationships and dating, It's so
Yeah,
true.
that's very true.
It's so true. Like I always say, if there's any potential reason to get together with someone, get together with them, even if the person is not, the right fit for you from a dating perspective. They may know someone that they could, say is another set you up with someone that could be the right person to date. For job interviews, a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't want to go on that job interview. That job's beneath me. I don't want to go on that job interview. That company is not interesting. Just go to the meeting.
Yeah.
Take the meeting. Like I've had 8 jobs in my life and not a single one did I apply for. It's not because I'm like amazing. It's because lucky things end up happening to me. And a lot of times I've shown up for job interviews. Don't worry, I'm not interviewing. Love Meetup, very happy. Not gonna leave Meetup ever. But I've shown for, I remember saying to someone, this job that I'm applying for is like 2 levels lower than what my previous job was. Well, why I shouldn't go for this? But I'm like, you know what? You never know. Just take the meeting. I took the meeting, it was the CEO of the company. And after like 10 minutes, they were like, yeah, this job that we were talking about doesn't make any sense for you. You're way more experienced than that. But I really like meeting you. So let's create this other job for you. Now, that never would have happened if I didn't kind of just take the meeting in the first place. So that lucky thing of creating a job only happened because I thought to myself, let's network and meet as many people. Now, in terms of the meeting people thing, so number one is I so believe in the power of LinkedIn. It's just absolutely remarkable in terms of giving everyone, or Facebook or Instagram, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Social media is bad in lots of ways, but the one thing it's very good for is learning about people prior to meeting them.
Yeah.
So before I meet with someone, I look at their LinkedIn profile or Facebook. Usually it's LinkedIn because it's business related, but if it's not business, it's personal. I could look at another social media platform, or I could look at a Meetup profile, by the way, and I could say, oh, this person's interested in photography. This person's interested in hiking. This person's a volunteer for Red Cross. And when I get together with the person, I will think about 2 or 3 things based on their background and experience that like give our source of positive energy for them. And things that are a positive source of energy for people love talking about. So I'll meet someone, I'll be like, so I saw that you volunteer at the local hospital on your LinkedIn profile. Wow, like when did you start doing that? That sounds awesome. And by the way, when I'm saying the wow, that sounds awesome, like I'm not just saying it like in a BS kind of way, like I genuinely mean it. So in terms of meeting people, some of the tips I would say is research people to the extent that you can beforehand, find what their energy is, find what's special about them, and find also what you're genuinely interested in about the person. Not just fake interested, because people could tell, but genuinely interested, because every person has multiple incredible things about them. I consider like my job is to find those incredible things about a person and then have a conversation with them about those incredible things that they're passionate about. And oh my gosh, we'll be able to connect from that perspective.
Great. Well, thank you very much. One thing, so I had to do, because of the severe bullying I went through all my life, I did not like people at all. So I had to go through my mind and heal my mind from all those bad experiences. It took a long time. And I had to develop the mentality to where I try to look for something I'm grateful for or I appreciate in everybody that I meet. And I had to learn to care about people when I did not care about people before. And so now when I meet someone, I always look at what's the lesson that the interaction with this person is trying to teach me. Do I need to learn to communicate better? And recently I've learned I need to up my communication skills and my boundaries and things too. It's a long process, especially if you're naturally shy or introvert. But
it's really not easy, especially if you're naturally shy and introverted. And that's where I think some preparation does come in handy of just learning about a person. And frankly, for an introvert, they may be less comfortable talking and telling stories, but they may be more comfortable just asking questions.
Yeah.
And sometimes.
Yeah, and I'm always open with people. I'm like, please ask me any question you want. Because I know, like when I was really introverted and shy, But someone, you know what? Sometimes I know being shy too, because I'll ask that to a shy person, their mind blanks, like, oh no, I don't know what question to ask, or I don't know what's in my mind. But I went through that whole same thing too. But I guess one of the points I want to make is that most people aren't born naturally able to like talk to strangers and being good at speaking in front of people and being good getting people to like them and interpersonal communication. Most people aren't born with those skills. It is all something you can get help in training and learn if you are open to changing who you are. If your ego is not too big to say, oh, I'm perfect, I don't need to change for anyone, the world has to change for me. If you're open, there's plenty of training and help there. Would like to kind of move on to the last point, and then we'll talk about your decision-making framework for a couple minutes. One of the things I thought was interesting in the book, and this was something I did when I was young too, because I would always like to be friends with people that were like decades older than me, more experienced at whatever I wanted to do, so I could get good advice. You called this, you had something called building your own personal board of advisors. I'd like you to explain that content, and then maybe we'll talk about what people should look for in their own advisors in their life.
Okay, so I think that, thank you, David, for calling that one out. I think that I am so fortunate in life to have had so many mentors that have truly like changed my life professionally and personally. And I think that when you're able to mentor someone, both the mentor gains from it and the mentee gains from it.
Yeah, that is very true.
And I mentor, oh my gosh, a lot of people right now that I meet with once a month or once a quarter or once a week even. And it gives me tremendous happiness and joy to be able to kind of help people on their paths, whatever their paths may be. A lot of them are like leading organizations, and I really enjoy it. But the personal board advisors concept is that everyone is so imperfect, and we all are striving to grow as people. And if you're able to surround yourself by people who you aspire towards some attribute that they may have. They may not be perfect people. No one's a perfect person. There could be a certain attribute that someone has that you know you could learn from that person. So I will actually say to people, can you be my mentor? I would love to talk to you once a quarter, because once a month is sometimes too often.
Yeah,
once a year
true.
isn't really often enough. So like, you know, every 3 months, would you be open to getting together for a breakfast or a lunch or even a Zoom meeting? And if you develop this personal board of advisors and this group of people, one person helps you with your career growth. Another person might help you in being, for me, a great father or a great husband. Another person might help you in thinking about mental health and emotional health. Another person might help you in like, wow, how do you balance physical health and going to the gym and taking care of yourself physically? So they shouldn't all be the same. But if you have to think about how do I build this personal board of advisors, that's so important. And by the way, those people shouldn't necessarily be the same as you. They should be quite different. And
yeah,
I'll give an analogy.
There's a value in having a diverse range of thought and types of people because they've all had different life experiences and wisdom to share.
Exactly. So the story I always like to tell around that is Abraham Lincoln was, of course, famous for having his cabinet, his advisors were all his like mortal enemies, people who he disagreed with. There's a famous book called Team of Rivals, which is he surrounded himself by his personal board of advisors were the people he disagreed with, but he knew he could learn from, because he knew that many of those people, if not all those people, had the United States' best interests at heart. They were very thoughtful. They came to different conclusions than he happened to have come from. But by having that kind of differences of opinion in his personal board of advisors, he was then able to make, you know, the right decisions, you know, in leading the country. So I love that you called it out. And I just want to encourage everyone here that even if you think that you don't have anything to help someone else with, you're wrong. You are dead wrong. Every person here can be a mentor to someone else.
That's true.
And that's important. You have every person here can teach someone something, and multiple people, something special. And take advantage of those opportunities, because there's such growth opportunities to be able to help others. And every person here certainly could also benefit from learning from others as well. And don't be uncomfortable asking someone for a relationship. Also, if you're very busy, don't feel uncomfortable saying, I'm sorry, I can't prioritize this right now. Like,
Yeah,
be
and that's
comfortable
where
saying no.
boundaries come in. Yeah,
Exactly.
you
So
can
both
do it in a
ways.
kind way and with empathy.
Exactly. Say, I'm so sorry. Why don't you follow up with me in 6 months from now? Because things might change at that time, because I would love to have a connection with you. Just things are a little bit overly overwhelming for me right now. That's perfectly great to say, right? No one gets offended by that. So
Yeah.
to tie it all up, I'm happy to answer any questions around this. And
Okay, great.
and I'm glad you asked about it.
Yeah, I'm fortunate to have a lot of good mentors in my life that I've met through different networks. I always try to pick people, usually like that have decades of experience in whatever I'm trying to do, so I know that their advice is valid, and things like that. Also, professionals and people that I feel a connection with and trust. And also, I appreciate it. So sometimes it makes you mad when you have someone close to you call you on something like oh, you're making this mistake, but ultimately they want to help you, they want to be kind to you, and they want you to grow if they're a real if they really appreciate you. I had a great advisor, my friend Dave Miller. He was my second client when I was doing websites when I was 16.
Wow.
And yeah, this was way back a long time ago when websites were first invented. But so he had a furniture company, one small office and a small shop, and then he grew it into this big, huge factory of 500 people. And then we had a manufacturing company in the 2000s, and he taught me so much about business. And I'm always really grateful to him. But,
Beautiful. Beautiful.
so I'd kind of like to move on to one more thing. You want to just give a couple minute overview of about the decision making framework you talk about in your book, and then I'll let people buy your book so they can read it.
Thank you.
And then we'll go to Q&A if that's cool.
Q&A, absolutely. And if people ask me anything professionally, personally, meetup, life, family, everything's an open book. There's no question that I would be uncomfortable answering, by the way. If it were, then I would tell you, but it's unlikely.
And I'll be reading the questions when we go to the Q&A. People can type them in chat, and then we'll pick the best ones, and we'll read them in chat there.
Sounds great. Okay, so the decision principle. So I think that oftentimes people have too strong of a framework for decision making, and it's too rigid. Like there's something called the Eisenhower matrix, which is basically a framework for decision making. Sorry, the book is called Decide and Conquer. It's about decision making and a lot of different stories about how to kind of make smarter decisions in life. And Eisenhower matrix is like looking at, what's high urgency, what's high important, and prioritize those things that are high urgency and high important. And I think that's great. But what I try to talk about is just different principles that are important. So for example, another principle that we haven't talked about yet, I'll just do two, because there's a whole bunch in there, but I'll just talk about two. One is the importance of speedy decisions. I think, especially, by the way, introverts in particular, people can ruminate and have analysis paralysis and keep thinking in their head about different things and not doing. The problem with that, of course, is you only learn usually by doing. You don't learn that much by thinking. You learn by doing, you learn by making a mistake, you learn by changing, failing. And I think one important principle is really the Nike principle, just do it. Theodore Roosevelt, obviously past president, 100 plus years ago, had said the best decisions are great decisions. The next best decisions are bad decisions. And the worst decision is no decision. Not making a decision is actually a decision. And it's important to recognize that people are sometimes afraid to make a decision because they don't want to make the wrong decision. But in reality, not making a decision is the worst decision, because then you're giving up your opinion and your power, just leaving it up to someone else to have things happen. So speed of decision making is very important. That's one principle. And last principle I'm just going to talk about is different biases that people have when it comes to decision making. And the four most common biases that I'll just go through very briefly are, number one is recency bias, which is the over emphasis of what just happened over something that may have happened a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. I just broke up with this person and this person was too loud. So I'm going to find a person who's very quiet. When in reality, you want to look at all the different perspectives that you have, not just that last experience. I just stopped this job because of I just moved from this city because now I need to move to the country. People, whipsaw from one extreme to another. So recency bias is one. The next one that's very well known is status quo bias, which is things are bad right now, but I at least know why they're bad. And the bad is worse than the unknown. So I'm just going to stick in the status quo. And that's just such a dangerous bias to be in, because then you never grow. We move to the next thing. It's so unfortunate when people have status quo bias. Next one, third famous bias for decision making is confirmation bias, which is people who want to just meet people and talk to people who just confirm their own opinions. They're yes people, and it's dangerous. You want to have disagreement to make a better decision, not people who just confirm your opinion. And the last one that I want to talk about is called sunk cost fallacy, which is basically not appreciating that something that you've done in the past is behind you. It's done. It's you don't need to think, oh, I need to stay in the city because I already put 3 years into this city, so I need to stay here. I need to already put 2 years into the relationship, so stay in this relationship. I need to put 2 years in this job, so you stay in this job. You've already put the time in. What's the right decision for this point moving forward? Don't think about how much time you put in the past. Think about what's the right decision for you right now. Not I need to compensate for the fact that I spent all this money, so now I want to use this thing, and using this thing makes me very unhappy, but I'm still going to keep using this thing because I spent so much money for it. That's
that's very true.
So I would say that the key message there is understand your biases, be aware and mindful of whether you have challenges, and I'll put out in status quo bias or recency bias or sunk cost bias or confirmation bias, and then just be aware of it. It'll help you make smarter decisions.
Well, thank you very much. I'd like to go ahead, just a quick summary. So we talked about the importance of being kind and difference between kind and nice. Also, being able to create your own luck by knowing as many people as you can and getting along with as many different people as you can. That's one of the goals of the International Friend Connection, is everybody comes here, learns how to get along with people that are vastly different from them. So one of my favorite authors, translator, he translated the book, The Art of War, and built a big business on those principles, Gary Gagliardi. He's retired now, but I heard an interview in the 2000s, and one thing he said is that all opportunities come from people. So you want to be kind to people, and you want to learn to understand people that are different from you, even if you think they're weird, because we all think different people are weird from us, that people, oh, those people are weird, but we want to understand those people. We ought to communicate with those people, because we never know where the next opportunity to improve our lives is going to come from. And last thing, we talked about building your own personal board of advisors. And you gave us a lot of great tips for that. Talk about your decision-making framework. I'd like to go into the Q&A portion. We got a couple questions, and people can start submitting the questions.
That was a good one.
So we have first ones from Camilo. Apologize if I got your name wrong there. He or she said, I'm an entrepreneur. Do you have any strategies to improve communication skills or how to connect with people who add value to the growth of the company?
Sure. I would say that as an entrepreneur, when you're trying to build a company, you're not able to pay top dollar. So you're not going to bring people into the organization, keep people in the company because you're paying them more than anyone else. You're gonna probably pay them less than other people. And that's okay. Because what you could pay them with is giving them incredible learning opportunities and growth opportunities and exposure opportunities to kind of own things they may not have been able to own beforehand. And from a communication standpoint, Camillo, I would say consistently seeing yourself as the entrepreneur, not just as an entrepreneur in building a business, but an entrepreneur in helping to build the careers of the people on your team. And if you say to yourself, my job is not just to build this great company, but is to help to build the careers of each of the people on my team, to give them critical feedback, to make them more effective, to give them a pat on the back and tell them all the ways in which they're killing it and doing a great job, then those are the type of communication skills. Giving feedback consistently, not surprising people is positively and negatively is so important, Camilla. So what I would say is focus on positive feedback and also critical feedback on a consistent basis. And that's something you could do special as an entrepreneur that will also help you from a communication standpoint. You don't need to be super charismatic as a leader, by the way. People think that the only way to be a great leader and to run a company is to be very charismatic. You don't. You have to be very empathetic. If you're empathetic and you're able to really connect with people on your team, that's way more important than charisma.
Well, thank you very much. I'd like to move on to another question. So I'll take one by Rose, which was very interesting. She said, what was the most challenging time in your life and how did you overcome the challenges? Or you could take it as, what was one mistake you made you'd be willing to share, and how did you recover or overcome from that mistake? So a couple of different things you could talk about there, because I want to emphasize everybody makes mistakes. No one's perfect. The people that learn from their mistakes and don't give up, and the people that the people that don't quit are the ones that end up winning.
I love it. Okay, so I'll do the mistake one for you. Mistake for 500, Alex Trebek.
Okay.
Or I guess not Alex Trebek. Who is it? Maya. Is Jennings the Jeopardy person now? Anyway,
I am not sure.
Okay, so mistakes. So I'll talk about a mistake that I made at Meetup, which was a really big one. I came into the company and the company was losing, and David had alluded to this, it was losing like $18 million a year. We were just hemorrhaging money. We were spending, this is before I started. This is not my fault. We were spending like $100,000 on, it's Jennings now. Thank you, Cheryl. We're spending like $100,000 some holiday party and hundreds of $1,000s in barbecues, very many evenings, and just fun, but not responsible, like a bunch of little teenagers, basically spending a lot of money irresponsibly. And we had to do a layoff when I first started. And after the layoff, I sat with everyone who was not laid off. And there was, at the time, still about 200 people there. I joined, there was 250, 50 people, maybe 40 or 50 people laid off. There were 200 people left. And someone raised their hand and said, David, tell me, because I'm so nervous, just tell me, please make me feel better. Are we done with the layoffs? Are we never going to have a layoff again? And because I'm a people pleaser, by the way, and because I didn't want the person to feel sad or feel bad or anything, I said, we are done. We are done. Well, sure enough, we ended up not doing well in the next like 9 months, and we had to do another layoff. And I got called out, appropriately so. So I thought you said that we were done. I made a huge mistake there, by the way, in giving out like an implicit promise when I shouldn't have. It depends. I should have said, I hope we're done. I would like to have been done with layoffs, but I can't promise anything because I don't know what our future is going to bring. And even though that would have made more people feel uncomfortable, it would have been truthful. And the truth is always more important. So my learning is, don't just be a people pleaser. Don't just do things so that everyone will feel happy and feel better, because a lot of times that can end up hurting you and others by just trying to kind of sugarcoat the truth. That was my mistake and my learning.
Being a people pleaser causes you to make a lot of mistakes, get a lot of people mad at you, and it's a lesson that I've learned very hard to.
You can't control what will happen ultimately. You don't know, so you have to say, I don't know. I wish, but I don't know.
And another one from our longtime member, Bob. I'm going to summarize his question. He said, would you have still been as successful in your career if you had been introverted, like had social anxiety or shy, and how important is natural extroversion and social skills for success? And can someone gain these skills? So Bob, I'd like you to attend one of my Monday talks that I usually do. I talk to you about how a person can gain these skills, and these are all skills that can be learned. And David, I'd like you to talk about that too.
Okay, sure. Okay, so first of all, the word success is a funny word because success for me may be unsuccessful for someone else,
Yeah,
and
true.
success for someone would be not success for me. So I think it's important for every person to not measure themselves against another person's success, but to say, like, what does success look like for myself? That's kind of the most important statement I would say around success. For me, and I'm speaking for myself, success for me was being able professionally to lead a large organization that ultimately helped to make the world a better place. That was success for me, because if I can have a meaningful input on helping to make the world a better place, like if I led a small organization or by myself try to make the world a better place, that's nice, but I have less impact. If I led a big organization, but it's not about making the world a better place, that's not that exciting either. So for me, I would say, Bob, that I would not have the job that I have today, nor have the life that I have today, if I had extreme social anxiety. I will tell you, as a kid, I did. And I was terrified of public speaking. I was terrified of raising my hand in class. I never raised my hand in class. I was definitely shy. I wasn't certainly bullied in the way that David was, but I certainly, people called me nicknames and things like that. And I didn't want to be like that. And I found a path at like 18, 19, 20 to build more confidence and to get out of kind of, and it wasn't clinical social anxiety, but I was definitely anxious, especially talking to girls, you know, as a young teenager. I was very anxious talking to girls. So I would
Oh
say,
yeah, I would say hi to it. My story is I would say hi to a girl and not know what to say, and I would run away.
wow. Okay, I didn't quite run away. I don't even know if I said hi. I just would get very nervous and
There you
sweaty
go.
and things like that. So here's my answer is, I would not be in the place I am if I was not able to have conquered social anxiety, if I was not able to be comfortable with who I am as a person. But for people that aren't able to conquer it for whatever reason, you could find success in how you define success. And that's
Yeah,
okay too. But
and
for me
that's a
personally,
very
I
good
think
point. Yeah, it's a very good point. Success can be different for everybody, just like happiness is different for everybody. One thing I learned in acceptance commitment therapy is you identify your values, you make small steps toward those values. And different values can be different for different people. Different things make different people happy.
well, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So
And
the short answer is no, and you can build the capability. And
yeah,
for me, it was critical to have becoming a CEO.
yeah, and there's so much tools and training and help out there. A lot of times people that are in these situations, it's like when we're in these situations, we don't know the right questions to ask. It's like, so like when I was 20, if I would have met someone that was a CEO, like you can meet someone that's a CEO of a company, an expert in something, but in one question can change your whole life. Like I met Dave Ramsey. I asked him one question. He gave me advice. I didn't want to take it, but if I took it, would have changed eventually I took the advice and it changed my whole life. But so a lot of times we don't know the right questions to ask. So that's why we got to turn to people and get a base level of education. So we know, like you could ask Elon Musk or Bill Gates one question could make you $1 million. But first you got to know the right question to ask.
Yeah, that's why personal board advisors is so important.
Yeah. And they will help you get those questions. One question from our friend, good friend Clarissa, that's been in the group for years. So she submitted 3 questions. I think I'd like to. So she's talking about how do you network successfully and like have a lot of friends, but still like keep in touch and like not neglect people. Any tips for that? I know it's extremely hard.
Oh, it's so important. Okay, so first of all, I really try to have for my closest friends certain rituals that we will try to do on a periodic basis. So for example, there's a group of like 8 to 10 people that we play, not poker often, but like 3 or 4 times a year. We get together and we will play poker. And maybe I won't even see them between those 3 or 4 months, but I know that I'm going to see these people every 3 or 4 months because we have like a thing that we do. I go to a synagogue once a week. So I know that I'm going to be seeing people at the synagogue once a week. I go to meetup events and meetup groups. So I know I'm going to be seeing some of the same people over and over again. So if you're able to have some ritual, some consistency of being able to see certain people, even if it's once a year. Well, I'm going to Israel in a couple of weeks, and whenever I go to Israel, there's like 5, 6, 7 people I always try to get together with every time I go to the country to see them. So having some every month, every week, every 2 years, every once a year, that helps a lot in kind of maintaining those relationships, because it doesn't have to be high volume of seeing people. It just has to be consistency of seeing people. Meaning if you don't see someone for 4 or 5 years, or multiple years, it becomes very awkward to then call them up and be like, I know we haven't stayed in touch, and then that's how you really lose touch. But even if you talk to someone once a year, it makes a difference. So for example, when it comes New Year's time, again, this happens to be a Jewish thing, but before the Jewish New Year, I'll call 20 or 30 people, and I've not spoken to them for a whole year prior, and I'll say, hey, just want to wish you a happy New Year. And it just, again, it's part of my like ritualization to have those things that I do that keep things going. That's one. And then the other thing that I try to do is do things with other people. So for example, if I'm going to go to the gym, I could go by myself, or I could call someone up and say, hey, do you want to work out together? Hey, do you want to play tennis together? And so I try to find the things that I have passions for doing, and I try to do them with other people. Meetup obviously is a great example of that, but you could do it one-on-one with other people as well. So I'm always thinking,
Great.
is there someone I could do this with? And if so, whom?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. And then we've got kind of a fun question for the last question for the night. Then I'll make a couple announcements, and we'll end up, because I want to keep that hour boundary around that, so that you can get to bed and spend some time with your family before you get to bed there. So our good friend Taz, I'll tell you about Taz. Taz is New York City's greatest driver.
Really?
Remember after I gave that speech or at the meetup party, he texted me. He's like, I'm bringing my car into Manhattan. I'm giving you a tour. And he took me a nighttime tour through Times Square and around Manhattan, just weaving in and out of traffic. And anywhere you want to go, Taz you call up Taz, he will get you there.
Wow.
Taxi and Uber driver, Tax one of the greatest Uber drivers. But so he has a question. As a CEO, who do you think is going to win in a potential CEO versus CEO mixed martial arts match between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg?
You know, it's funny. I was just talking to my son about this literally just yesterday, and I was going to say, well, you know, Elon Musk probably wouldn't fight fair, so he could win. But then I realized actually Mark Zuckerberg probably wouldn't fight fair either, so he would win too. So I think they're both so intense, and they both refuse to lose kind of personalities. I think it would be tough. My money's probably on Mark Zuckerberg, because I think he has 10 to 12 years younger than Elon Musk, and that helps a little bit as one gets into their their 50s. As I'm getting there, it's a little harder than when you're a little young. So I'm going to give my money to Zuckerberg there.
There we go. Well, I just want to thank you and express my gratitude again.
They would both destroy me though. They would both kick my ass, is what I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't want to be in a ring with anybody. I'm not in that shape, but just want to express my gratitude again for taking the time out to join us tonight. Also got to express gratitude for some of the co-hosts for helping out. Apologize if I don't name you all, but we had Rich and also Avalon's helping, and Sharia, and also Ann's here. And all of my great meetup organizers and supporters, the other meetup and mentors that showed up, other groups that sent us guests tonight, like Dale and her group. She sent us a lot of guests tonight too. So really grateful for that. I just want to thank everybody for coming. And with that, I think we will end for the night.